Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. He only had one aim, Ma Xiaodao, who was currently maintaining her 6th soul skill. She was in an extremely vulnerable position now that she'd released her omnidirectional soul skill. As such, Dai Yueheng believed that he'd be able to defeat his remaining opponents with his Soul Emperor ranked cultivation, so long as she was defeated. Ma Xiaodao didn't have any intentions of retreating from Dai Yueheng's assault. She simply let out a low roar, Golden Road. Afterwards, she rushed forwards to meet Dai Yueheng. Furthermore, she continued to maintain the Phoenix meteor shower as she did so. The scene of Ma Xiaodao accelerating, with her legs spouting fire once again, revealed itself to Hu Yuhao. When she accelerated like this, she collided with Dai Yueheng in practically an instant. They were both 6-ringed assault-type Soul Emperors, and they were both inner courtyard disciples. Furthermore, there was only a slight difference in their cultivations. However, their styles of attack were somewhat different. Ma Xiaodao relied on energy-based attacks, which was somewhat similar to Wang Dong. However, Dai Yueheng was different, he relied on pure physical power. As such, it was Ma Xiaodao who got the short end of the stick when they met head-on. Following a thunderous roar, the Phoenix meteor shower suddenly stopped, and Ma Xiaodao's body was sent reeling from the backlash. Currently, Dai Yueheng had released his 1st, 3rd, and 5th soul skills. These skills were, respectively, the White Tiger's Shield, the White Tiger's Vajra transformation, and the White Tiger's Devil God transformation, all of which had the ability to strengthen his body. However, Ma Xiaodao hadn't suffered a complete loss. When the two of them had collided, she'd used her 4th skill. Thus, even though she'd been knocked backwards and slightly wounded, her 4th skill had managed to interrupt Dai Yueheng's strongest skill, his 6th skill. A fiery red ring was now revolving around Dai Yueheng's body. Afterwards, it spread outwards and cancelled Yao Haoshuan's buffs, which made Dai Yueheng's body numb, and also made him incapable of using any of his soul skills. Of course, this state only lasted a very short time. After all, his body was currently under the effect of 3 powerful body strengthening skills. But at that moment, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's dazzling Golden Road hit their target with great accuracy. The moment that Ma Xiaodao had been knocked back, a huge vertical eye had quietly appeared where she'd been standing before and releasing her Phoenix meteor shower. The golden radiance it emitted immediately covered an area 50 meters wide, and left a golden trail behind in the assessment area. Dai Yueheng, who was in a weakened state, had no choice but to meet the attack head-on. In an instant, the golden light passed through him. Moreover, Yao Haoshuan, who was still swallowing the last of Ma Xiaodao's Phoenix meteor shower, and had been about to spit one out, also happened to be directly behind Dai Yueheng. As such, he was hit by the Golden Road as well. When the Golden Road struck them, 2 golden statues were left on the battlefield. Thunderous explosions then proceeded to happen one after another. Bei Bei roused his blue lightning tyrant dragon martial soul, and charged towards Chen Zifeng's soul-chasing sword. If he were to only rely on himself, it would be extremely difficult to deal with Chen Zifeng. However, currently, a very dangerous flash of lightning was beside him. Even someone like Dai Yueheng was fearful of 11 Shi's attacks, not to mention Chen Zifeng. And currently, he couldn't avoid them. Amidst the cry of a phoenix, Ma Xiaodao rolled upwards while in midair. Immediately afterwards, she opened her phoenix wings and charged towards Dai Yueheng once again. At the same time, dozens of dazzling lights exploded towards the currently golden form of Yao Haoshuan. Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's Golden Road had the disadvantage of it only being able to attack in a straight line. Despite this, its greatest advantage was its extremely high degree of power. Nevertheless, Dai Yueheng's body reverted back to normal in less than 2 seconds. However, this only applied to his outer appearance. His White Tiger martial soul was still temporarily neutralized. Yao Haoshuan was in the same situation. In fact, he seemed to be in an even more miserable state. He Kaitu returned to his normal form from that of a 4-meter-tall giant, then used all the power in his soul tool to charge towards Yao Haoshuan. The outcome could be imagined. This time, it was Dai Yueheng that was sent flying. Yao Haoshuan was also covered in bruises once he was hit by Hikaitu's soul tool head-on. He was directly removed from the battlefield by Elder Xian the moment that Hikaitu's attacks landed. At this moment, the frozen Ma Xiaodao and the rest finally broke free of their bindings. Shivering somewhat, Ma Xiaodao glared fiercely at Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao shrugged helplessly towards her. He didn't know why, but he preferred Ma Xiaodao's faux anger over Dai Yueheng's smile. Elder Xian was very pleased with today's matches. He understood how strong each member of the official team was. After Ma Xiaodao returned, there were a few voices of dissent within the team. After today's matches, however, she had revealed a persuasive amount of power. Though they'd lost the second match, everybody could see that she was slightly stronger than Dai Yueheng overall. Naturally, the situation could be different in a life-and-death match. After all, this was just a mock battle. The members of the official team hadn't used any relatively brutal techniques. However, Elder Xian mainly wanted to test out the 7 members of the preparatory team. Bei Bei, Xu Sanxia, Jiang Nan, and He Kaitu's performances conformed to his expectations. Jiang Nan was an agility-type soul master, and she had been suppressed relatively heavily. Thus, one couldn't blame her for not being able to perform spectacularly. However, Elder Xian was surprised by Hu Yuhao's trio. They had the lowest cultivation levels within their team, but they were extremely well coordinated with each other. Hu Yuhao was also able to strengthen the combat strength of his entire team by relying on his powerful spiritual detection. When he was teamed up with Ma Xiaodao, he was able to use the Golden Road at the right moment in order to settle the entire battle. Though their opponents had underestimated them due to unfamiliarity, the effectiveness of the Golden Road was evident. After hearing his reminder, the newly crowned victors immediately looked towards Ma Xiaodao with a smile. The saddest of the lot were undoubtedly Yao Haoshuan and Jiang Nan. They'd lost 2 consecutive matches. Ma Xiaodao glared at Hu Yuhao again. You just wait for me. I'm a pig. The others could only helplessly refer to themselves as a certain chubby animal. Elder Xian laughed as he watched all this, feeling joyous inwardly. He believed that Hu Yuhao's generation of the Shrek's 7 monsters would definitely be stronger than the current generation in 5 years' time. Okay, you can all go back. Pack up your things. Gather at the academy's entrance tomorrow morning. We're going to Star Luo City to take part in a competition. Star Luo City. Hu Yuhao couldn't help but cry out after hearing these words. Elder Xian looked towards him with a somewhat puzzled look in his eyes. Is there a problem? The Continental Advanced Academy Soul Dueling Tournament is held in a different country every year. This time around, it's the Star Luo Empire's turn. The next one, which is the one you'll be able to participate in as an official team member, will be held in the Sun Moon Empire. It'll be held in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Thus, you'll have to work even harder during these next 5 years. Yuhao, are you okay? Wang Dong whispered. Hu Yuhao shook his head. I'm fine. I just can't adapt to suddenly going back. I can't let Dai Yueheng know of my true identity. Wang Dong was silent for a moment, then whispered, Yuhao, he should be your older brother. You stirred up. Hu Yuhao interrupted him. I don't have an elder brother, nor do I have any relatives. My mom is dead, and I'm only an orphan. Fine, an orphan it is. Wang Dong hurriedly parroted him, sorry. Hu Yuhao nodded his head gloomily. Wang Dong walked over to him and sat beside him. Don't think too much about it. There'll always be a way to get over this. Furthermore, it's not guaranteed that someone will recognize you even if we go back. Haven't you felt that you've changed greatly during this past year? Even someone who previously recognized you might not be able to tell who you are now. I know that you're pained, but since you've chosen to face them and seek revenge, you have to be strong. The opponent you're going against is extremely strong. Hu Yuhao was stunned. Have I changed a lot? Wang Dong knocked him on the head once, then passed him a mirror from his bedside. Take a look for yourself. Hu Yuhao finally revealed a smile after seeing Wang Dong's serious expression. Since a lazy fella like you is actually asking me to cultivate, let's do it. I'm going to surpass you sooner or later. Wang Dong feigned surprise as he looked towards the window. Why are there cows flying in the sky? I know. It's because you're spouting bullshit. Don't you dare laugh at me. I'll show you how awesome I am. Hu Yuhao suddenly pounced towards Wang Dong. Defenseless, the latter let out an astonished cry as he immediately tumbled onto the bed. Hu Yuhao held onto his hands evilly, then shouted, Are you gonna submit? No. Wang Dong shouted provokingly, You're really not gonna submit? Hu Yuhao slowly pressed down on him, and the distance between his face and Wang Dong's began to decrease. He had a naughty smile on his face as he looked at the latter's pair of beautiful, round eyes. As Hu Yuhao continued to get closer to him, Wang Dong could feel his breathing on his face. He was finally panicking, and hence shut his eyes subconsciously. But he still forced out a few words. No. I won't submit. Hu Yuhao was left in a daze as he looked at Wang Dong's long, trembling eyebrows. He was just a few inches away from him, and he could smell the faint fragrance coming from him. He didn't know why, but he shivered uncontrollably as he looked at Wang Dong, who was being forced down by him, so much so that he was completely helpless. He hurriedly let go of Wang Dong's hands, then grabbed his pinkish face and squeezed it. Then, he laughed, if you won't submit, I'll make you look like a pig. Hey, you look rather good even as a pig. Quickly, stick out your mouth so you'll look even more like one. Hu Yuhao, I'm gonna fight you. Two similar figures stood together. Brother, so how about it? Is there a chance for you to make a move? Dai Huabin asked resentfully. Dai Yueheng snorted coldly. You'd best give up. There's no chance. Hu Yuhao's even more talented than you. He has a skill called spiritual detection that can benefit every single one of his teammates. Furthermore, it's obvious that Elder Xian likes him a lot. The 2 consecutive matches we had were to show off his strength for everyone to approve of him. I don't even need to tell you what kind of person Elder Xian is again. Also, Mother is very angry over this incident. Fortunately, Father's not home. Otherwise, you'd be in for a lot of trouble. Mother has told me to pass on a piece of news to you. If there is a next time, nobody is going to help you. Do you know how much pressure Mother suffered to keep this matter quiet? Even the royal family doesn't dare to offend the academy. You were actually this rash. Dai Huabin's eyes turned red. Don't tell me that you're just going to let this go. Did our men die for nothing, bastard? Dai Yueheng suddenly pulled his hand back and slapped Dai Huabin's face. The latter staggered and nearly fell to the ground. How old are you already? Dai Yueheng asked sternly. Do you not know the difference between the clan's interests and your private grudges? If this were a Soul Master Academy within our country, I'd have let you do anything you wanted. But this is Shrek. Don't you know what the word Shrek means? If you want to continue staying here, you'd better back down. Is this a place where you can simply do as you wish? Morning. Amidst the misty gates of Shrek Academy, a group of people slowly walked out. From their ages, it was clear that they were students of Shrek Academy. However, they weren't wearing their uniforms today. Some of the students were wearing clothes made of cloth, while some were wearing ones with flowery designs. All of them wore different things. Flowery clothes weren't necessarily beautiful, and ones made of cloth didn't necessarily represent mediocrity. The most obvious delegates of the 2 types of clothes were Yao Haoshuan and Jiang Nan Nan. As a result of his skinny body, Yao Haoshuan looked somewhat wretched with his flowery clothes on. On the other hand, the cloth-wearing Jiang Nan Nan looked incomparably elegant. Hu Yuhao no longer wore the set of clothes he brought to the academy. However, he treasured the set of clothes his mother had made for him, and had thus placed them in the 24 moonlit bridges. Currently, he was no longer the poor young boy who didn't have a single penny to his name. The black set of warrior's robes he wore made him look extremely nimble. Due to the changes that had occurred to his body, he looked 14 to 15 years old, even though he wasn't even 13 yet. The well-proportioned muscles underneath his robes seemed to contain an explosive amount of power within them. Wang Dong was no longer as tall as Hu Yuhao, but his slender body, elegant aura, and clever yet beautiful eyes were extremely captivating. If the prettiest among the girls was Jiang Nan Nan, he was definitely the most handsome of the boys. In terms of pure appearance, he was comparable to Jiang Nan Nan. The sun had just risen from the east, but they were already leaving the academy. This group of people naturally consisted of the official and preparatory teams of the Shrek's 7 monsters. Elder Xian wasn't the only person leading the group. Hu Yuhao's teacher, Wang Yang, also tagged along with them. Only now did Hu Yuhao know that Elder Xian was teacher Wang's master. Only, Elder Xian wouldn't allow the former to address him as such. Elder Xian liked his inheriting disciple very much, even though he wasn't comparable to the other heavens chosen in terms of cultivation. Wang Yang could travel far along the path of research into martial souls, and he would be able to teach within the inner courtyard after 2 more years of practice. Whilst walking together with Bei Bei, He Kai-tu turned around. He saw Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong with a weird look in his eyes and whispered, "Senior brother, isn't Wang Dong using the ghost shadow perplexing tracks? What's Hu Yuhao doing?" Bei Bei naturally saw what the 2 of them were doing. He revealed a sincere look of admiration on his face. Hu Yuhao's using another secret technique of our Tang sect. It's called the controlling crane capturing dragon, and its user can use their soul power to release a pushing or pulling motion within a fixed range. It's a skill that's extremely practical in close combat. I'll teach it to you later. Actually, even if your martial soul isn't a combat-oriented one, you'll be able to wield a decent amount of strength in a close combat situation once you've finished training in our techniques. Xiao Xiao looked towards the two of them with a somewhat envious look in her eyes, then moved closer to Bei Bei. Senior brother, let's try this out as well. Bei Bei couldn't help but laugh. We're not too suitable for what they are doing. The training they are doing now is more suitable for people whose cultivations are closer to each other. If I use my controlling crane capturing dragon on you, you won't even be able to use your ghost shadow perplexing tracks. Xiao Xiao's lips pouted. Those two are so close that they're like the same person. I can't interrupt them either. They're both guys, so why are they so intimate with each other? She was truly somewhat envious of the intimate relationship that Wang Dong had with Hu Yuhao. In the past, she'd thought that it would be much easier for her to mix around with guys due to the fact that she was a girl. However, the intimacy that Hu Yuhao had with Wang Dong was evidently much deeper than the friendship she had with them. He Kaitu gave a silly laugh. Since the two of them can complete a fusion skill, they are naturally close to each other. However, a martial fusion between two people who don't share the same bloodline is quite rare. Xiao Xiao, why don't I help you out? I don't know how to use the controlling crane capturing dragon, but I can use some of my weaker soul tools to help you train your ghost shadow perplexing track. How about that? Though she felt that Hikaitu's extremely rugged body and black skin looked somewhat fierce, Xiao Xiao was always a very kind and straightforward person in her interactions with other people. Thus, she nodded, sure. I want to train hard as well. Otherwise, I deserve to be eliminated if I lagged behind them. Elder Xian and the 7 members of the official team stood at the very front, while the 7 members of the preparatory team trailed behind them. Because of that, Shu Sanxia and Jiang Nannan were able to listen in on Bei Bei's conversation with the others. It wasn't easy for Shu Sanxia to obtain an opportunity to go out with Jiang Nannan. Naturally, he was tagging along with her shamelessly. Jiang Nannan was simply helpless in front of Shu Sanxia. Thus, she strictly forbade him from entering a 1-meter area around her and from harassing her. After Shu Sanxia nodded like a baby chick eating rice, she ignored him. Seeing that Hu Yuhao and the rest were working hard, Shu Sanxia immediately devised a plan. He smiled mischievously, Nan Nan, see how hard they are working. Why don't we practice as well? Look, my hard and thick skin is great for you to practice your throwing skills. Naturally, I can take on your grappling skills as well. His thirsty face was clearly telling Jiang Nannan, grapple me, grapple me. Jiang Nannan turned around and looked at him with an icy look in her eyes. It'd be better for you to scram than anything else. Shu Sanxia immediately contorted his face and said indignantly, Nan Nan, just what can I do to make you understand my heart? I'm sincere towards you. Just how can I make you be willing to be together with me? Shu Sanxia was left embarrassed. He raised his head high. A girl can give me a child, can you? A girl can sleep with me on a bed, but can you? Bei Bei gave a warm smile. I can't do the former, but I can do the latter. Elder Xian, who was walking in front, suddenly staggered mysteriously. Then, he violently spat out the mouthful of wine he had in his mouth before glaring fiercely at Bei Bei and Shu Sanxia. The two of them straightened their faces, not daring to say anything more. Okay. Come over. Elder Xian spat out a mouthful of saliva, then used his dirty, greasy sleeve to wipe his mouth before yelling out unhappily. The group of 14 hurriedly stepped forward and formed a circle around him. Due to the fact that they were just training, Hu Yuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao were slightly out of breath. Shu Sanxia still believed that it was Bei Bei's words that had triggered Elder Xian. Just wait for your scolding. He whispered coldly. At this moment, Bei Bei didn't have any traces of a smile on his face. He had a ruthless look, and he mouthed a few words. Since I'm going to get scolded, I'm gonna tell Jiang Nannan that you actually like guys. You were only chasing her to hide your real sexual orientation. Your sister, Shu Sanxi's face reddened. Bei Bei maintained full eye contact with him and said, I don't have a sister. Elder Xian suddenly ruffled his hair and glared at the two of them. If you two spout any more bullshit, I'm gonna beat you to the point where you won't even be able to take care of yourselves anymore. Ma Xiaodao laughed. Elder Xian, you're in perfectly good condition. However, our public morals are truly degenerating. They are so young, but they've inclinations like this. I suggest that the academy have a rectification campaign. Ma Xiaodao didn't go so far as to pursue and attack Dai Yueheng again. She unfurled her wings and looked arrogantly down at Chen Zifeng. Admit defeat. Originally, he'd already been at a disadvantage under the 11-Bei combo. However, right now, he was the only one left from his team. What was the point in resisting? He could only helplessly retreat and put an end to the match. The fight had concluded, and it could be only described as an overwhelming victory. No one from Ma Xiaotao's side had been eliminated, yet Dai Yueheng's entire team had been annihilated. Nonetheless, Dai Yueheng hadn't been injured. Ma Xiaodao had shown mercy when she'd sent him flying. He had a gloomy and surprised expression when he realized that they'd lost. He then looked towards Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong, both puzzled and astonished. How had they lost? They'd clearly held a huge advantage in terms of individual strength. How had 4 members of the main team lost so pitifully? Furthermore, the cause of their loss hadn't even been the main members of the enemy team. In fact, he'd already made plans for the strongest of them, Ma Xiaodao. However, Wang Dong, Hu Yuhao, and even Bei Bei and He Kaitu's power had surpassed his expectations. The 4 members of the preparatory team on Ma Xiaodao's side had played a great role in this battle, while the 3 reserves on his team had had little to no impact before they'd been eliminated. Moreover, Ling Luochen hadn't even been able to display her abilities. Elder Xian came down from the sky with the students he'd rescued. Quick, the losers should accept their punishment, he said with a smile, you'll have another chance later. I'm a pig. Dai Yueheng shouted without hesitation. However, his face still twitched, as he hadn't accepted this loss in his heart. Yao Haoshuan and Chen Zifeng had no choice either, they shouted the words as well. When Ling Luochen said them, she was carefully scrutinizing Hu Yuhao. Xiao Xiao also said it without any problems. Even these seniors are shouting it. Would I really lose face if I were to shout it? Jiang Nan also said in a low and soft voice, I'm a pig. Xu Sanxia attempted to flatter her, as you'd expect from the woman I like. She still looks so cute even when she's calling herself a pig. Jiang Nan glared at him and said, go away. Wang Dong, who was standing near Hu Yuhao, burst into laughter. However, he quickly turned his head away. Hu Yuhao's face also twitched as he tried to hold back his laughter. Senior brother, she was madly in love with Jiang Nan. Despite this, Jiang Nan was trying her best to not pay any attention to him. They were truly an interesting couple. C. Elder Xian said, good. You have a 2-hour break. Afterwards, since some of you still seem to be unconvinced, you'll fight again. When they heard that they would fight again, the 7 disciples of the inner courtyard immediately sat down and began to recover their soul power. In the fight just now, everyone had used different quantities of soul power. As they meditated, they also went over the information they'd gained from the fight just now. When they saw this, Hu Yuhao and the others also sat down to recover their soul power. Of everyone present, he and Wang Dong had consumed the greatest amount of soul power. Moreover, they'd already used their golden road, they wouldn't be able to use it again if they had to battle in a short while. Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong were slowly discovering the peculiarities of the golden road now that they'd used it in battle multiple times. Elder Xian casually chose a place to sit down. Afterwards, he took a greasy chicken leg out of nowhere and took a bite from it. Currently, his face that was hidden behind a mass of extraordinarily messy hair held a pensive expression. No one could tell what he was thinking. 2 hours quickly passed, after which they were all back on their feet. Elder Xian also stood up. He took a large swig of alcohol, then said with a smile, kids, don't be impatient. What's the point of fighting with the same members once again? Therefore, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong will switch teams with Yao Haoshuan and Jiang Nan. Both sides were surprised when they heard Elder Xian's words. The ones that had the biggest reaction were Dai Yueheng and Chen Zifeng. Both of them furrowed their brows. On the other hand, the normally cold Ling Luochen had a pensive expression. Elder Xian indifferently said, silence. It was an order. I wasn't asking for your opinion. If you have some skills, you better use them in the fight. Before criticizing your teammates, you should make sure to not act like a pig yourself. Now then, make the changes that I said. As Elder Xian spoke in a grave tone, a burst of oppressive aura began to spread over the area. None of the students dared to say another word, and they quietly exchanged members. Besides Chen Zifeng, Ma Xiaodao was also unwilling to make this exchange. Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection was just too useful. Without him, would they still be able to have a tacit understanding like before? When Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong arrived at the opposite side, Yao Haoshuan and Jiang Nan also took their places in the opposite party. Just looking at their lineup, Ma Xiaotao's team seemed to have the advantage. 4 of them were members of the main team, while the other 3 members from the preparatory team were all soul ancestors. The core strength of Dai Yueheng's team was comprised of Chen Zifeng, Ling Luochen, and himself. Among the other 4, Xu Sanxia was comparatively stronger in terms of direct combat. The remaining 3 consisted of Hu Yuhao, Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao. To them, the only advantage brought about by having Hu Yuhao on their team was that Ling Luochen's ability shouldn't be restricted, but that was all. Elder Xian indicated for both parties to space out, but he didn't give them time to familiarize themselves with one another this time around. As soon as both parties were 150 meters apart, he sounded the command for them to begin. Both sides were closer to one another this time around. As soon as Elder Xian gave the signal to begin, the control system battle soul masters on both sides immediately activated their skills. Dai Yueheng, Chen Zifeng, and Xu Sansha were in front, Ling Luochen was in the middle, and Wang Dong, Hu Yuhao, and Xiao Xiao were in the back. Ling Luochen ran ahead of Hu Yuhao, then turned her head back to look at Hu Yuhao, her cold gaze bearing a degree of curiosity and alertness. Hu Yuhao shrugged his shoulders towards her. Afterwards, both of his foolproof white soul rings have lit up once more. Just like before, his spiritual detection sharing was activated when the moment that his first soul ring lit up. The people in front of him shuddered, all simultaneously shuddered. If it weren't for the fact that they were all well experienced in battle, they wouldn't have been able to keep themselves from turning and staring at Hu Yuhao. Dai Yueheng and Chen Zifeng finally understood why Ma Xiaotao's phoenix meteor shower had been so accurate before. However, they hadn't even thought that it had been due to Hu Yuhao. Weren't his soul rings just white, 10-year ones? How could he have such a powerful spiritual type soul skill? Furthermore, he'd previously used an ice attribute martial soul, right? As such, how had this spiritual type soul skill come about? Both parties were just over 100 meters away from one another. It didn't matter that Dai Yueheng, Chen Zifeng, and Ling Luochen had misgivings about this soul skill in their hearts, as they had to face their opponents first. Ling Luochen was also a control system battle soul master. The cold stream that had previously surrounded her rose up once more. As it did, Ma Xiaodao appeared directly across from her. In that moment, her phoenix wings unfurled again, and with Gong Yangmo's help, raging torrential flames appeared once more. The temperature in the assessment area rapidly began to increase. At that exact moment, Ling Luochen felt two warm palms suddenly press themselves against her back. She couldn't help but shudder, which nearly interrupted her soul skill. Both parties began to near each other as Ling Luochen had this revelation. Ling Luochen quickly calmed down, then immediately confirmed that it was Hu Yuhao behind her. However, when she did, she noticed that his two soul rings had actually turned into a single soul ring. Wang Dong was right behind Hu Yuhao, and he'd firmly planted both his hands on Hu Yuhao's back as well. She was able to see all of this because of Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection. Her ice element had turned into an ultimate ice element. To Ling Luochen, this feeling was both magical and wonderful. Even though this wouldn't turn her into a true ultimate ice soul master, what Hu Yuhao had done was equivalent to amplifying her ice attribute for a short period of time, such that she could temporarily use the power of an ultimate ice attribute. Furthermore, ultimate ice that bore the power of a soul king. Ling Luochen's first soul ring metamorphosed into an icy staff, which she then raised over her head. However, she didn't release her second soul ring and equip her ice armor this time around. Instead, she pointed her icy staff towards the sky. When she did, an icy blue halo encased her whole body in a split second, which caused body to be wrapped in an icy blue coat. Immediately afterwards, an icy blue pillar of light soared into the sky. The dry heat that had filled their surroundings was immediately swept into oblivion. Not only that, but once the icy cold draft had risen 10 meters into the air, it rapidly spread like a tide and pressed itself against Ma Xiaotao's phoenix flames. No matter how firm Dai Yueheng's resolution was, he couldn't help but look up at the sky. He just so happened to see an icy blue layer overtake both Chen Zifeng and himself at an astonishing speed. That icy blue layer then rapidly came into contact with Ma Xiaotao's monstrous phoenix flames. When they felt the chilliness brought about by the ultimate ice, Dai Yueheng and Chen Zifeng couldn't help but shiver, despite being her teammates. They exchanged a glance, the astonishment they felt clearly present in their eyes. All of them were within Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection sharing, thus they could naturally tell that Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong were both currently supporting Ling Luochen. Furthermore, the cold aura that Ling Luochen had revealed had completely surpassed that of the one she'd revealed in the past. The overwhelming pressure brought about by it shocked even a soul emperor like Dai Yueheng. Ma Xiaotao's reddish-golden flames rapidly collided with the icy blue streams of cold. The people on Ma Xiaotao's team were startled to find that their deduction was wrong. The one currently winning wasn't the soul emperor Ma Xiaodao, but rather the soul king Ling Luochen. When the cold streams came into contact with the scorching phoenix flames, they seemed as though they'd suddenly encountered a downpour. The flames dissipated in the face of the cold streams, and were consequently replaced by the cold torrential streams. The cold streams of air shocked every single person on Ma Xiaotao's team, and caused them to feel a little sluggish. Yao Haoshuan had already turned into an extremely brawny 4-meter-tall man, and he began forcefully thumping his chest. That was his first soul skill, warfare. However, this yellow soul skill of his that strengthened everyone on his team wasn't able to neutralize the chilliness they felt. Contrary to his expectations, he even slowed down a little. It was at this moment that Xiao Xiao's 9 phoenix worshipping flute suddenly rang out. Under her precise control, the sound waves that caused people to slow down flew past her teammates without affecting them, only affecting the 7 people on Ma Xiaotao's team. Ma Xiaotao's team was strong, but they had a problem: they didn't have a real control system battle soul master on their team. Their opponents, on the other hand, had 3 of them. Under the joint efforts of Ling Luochen and Xiao Xiao, their 7-man team had now become significantly slower. In that moment, her pupils were vertical, while her skin had turned black, and lightning was currently coiling around body. That's right, this was her martial soul, lightning leopard. However, someone had blocked that attack of hers, which she'd unleashed with the intention to win. It was only natural that Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong wouldn't have been able to block her sudden attack head-on, but there was someone who could: Shu Sansha. His huge shield of the Xuanwu turtle had landed right in front of Hu Yuhao, which had caused 1111 to rebound from her attack. After her attack struck, Shu Sansha positioned himself horizontally from her. At that moment, Dai Yueheng and Chen Zifeng were even more aware of the wonder brought about by Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection. They were able to completely grasp the situation on the battlefield in a 3-dimensional form at all times due to his spiritual detection. Normally, a speedy assassin such as 1111 would dart behind their opponents and ambush them where they knew they'd appear. However, they didn't make a detour to deal with 1111 this time around. Shu Sanshi's obstruction had appeared in their spiritual detection, thus all they needed to do was face their opponents head-on. Both parties were about to collide with one another, when Dai Yueheng suddenly revealed a somewhat strange smile on his face. Following that, his 4th soul ring suddenly lit up. A bright, golden-white pillar of light soared into the sky. A brilliant, crescent moon-shaped light seemed to shine from within the light pillar. Shortly afterwards, tens of balls of light appeared from atop the light pillar and descended in a flash. They passed Ma Xiaodao by, then split into 2 groups. One group headed towards the skybound Gongyangmo, while the other portion rapidly dispersed and shot towards Jiang Nannan and Hikaitu. Who doesn't know how to unleash a meteor shower? You have your Phoenix meteor shower. I have my White Tiger meteor shower. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's my turn to land a clean hit now that I have Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection on my side. Dai Yueheng was sent flying backwards from the collision, and 2 deep grooves had appeared on the ground below him. When he finally stopped, he was already knee-deep in the ground. Ma Xiaodao wasn't feeling any better. As she tumbled on the ground, she was struck by Ling Luochen's icy ring, and was frozen into a dark blue pillar of ice as a result. As for Gong Yangmo, even though his auxiliary abilities were extremely strong, he wasn't specialized in combat. Hikaitu did his best to rescue him with his soul tools, but a 10,000-year soul skill that held the power of ultimate ice wasn't something that a Class 4 soul engineer could withstand. The power of ice enveloped him, and he was frozen solid as well. There was no need to even mention Yao Haoshuan. Before he could destroy the icy prison that had entrapped him, Ling Luochen reinforced it. As a result, his massive body was sealed within the icy prison. With Hu Yuhao's elemental amplification, Ling Luochen's level of control over the battlefield had been at least doubled. At that moment, however, Hu Yuhao suddenly turned around. 2 bolts of purplish golden lightning shot out of his eyes towards 11 Shi's. 1111 only felt as if her head had been viciously smashed by a hammer. An instantaneous period of blankness overwhelmed her mind. Regardless of how quick she was still a soul king. Hu Yuhao had fused his spiritual shock with his purple demon eyes, and had utilized the spiritual power from the Haodong power. Even Ma Xiaodao would have been momentarily stunned by his attack. Hu Yuhao wasn't the only person who'd made a move. Xiao Xiao, who'd been standing there and playing her flute by herself, finally made her a move as well. Her enormous pitch-black cauldron mightily rumbled forwards, as she released her national treasure, Cauldron's quaking tremble. She used her strongest soul skill, then maneuvered it right in front of 11 Shi's body with the help of Hu Yuhao's spiritual detection. Even though 1111 had only been stunned for a single second, that was enough time for her. Wang Dong's charged-up attack also finally arrived and struck 1111. Even though she'd been able to quickly recover from Xiao Xiao's cauldron's quaking tremble with her powerful cultivation, it wasn't possible for her to dodge this attack. Wang Dong's 1,000-year soul skill, the butterfly goddess slash. Thanks, replied Hu Yuhao with a smile. He was very clever. If Dai Yueheng could hide his emotions, why couldn't he? At the very least, Dai Yueheng wouldn't dare to make a move against him within the academy due to the lesson Dai Huobin had received. Have you felt it? A live battle is the best way to test everything out. Hui Yuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao aren't strong enough by themselves, but they have a respectable amount of talent. Thus, I'm giving them this chance. Hui Yuhao, from now on, you're the main control type Soul Master of the preparatory team. Bei Bei, you'll be its leader. A team leader was the head of a team, while the main control type Soul Master was the brains of a team. By relying on his performance in the previous 2 matches, Hui Yuhao was worthy of becoming the main control type Soul Master in the preparatory team even with his 2-ringed cultivation. Nobody objected to this. Suddenly, everyone felt the temperature surrounding them drop. The words killing intent arose involuntarily in their hearts, making all of them shut up. The killing intent that had appeared instantly caused Hui Yuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao to stiffen up due to their low cultivations. Fortunately, it only lasted for a moment before disappearing. Elder Xian acted as if he'd heard and done nothing, and spoke in a low voice, "We aren't far from the academy, and there are few things that I have to say now. You 7 from the preparatory team have to listen carefully to me. This concerns the future direction of your path in the academy." Elder Xian's usual attitude wasn't too calm, but this was the first time they'd seen him act so seriously. Hui Yuhao and the other 6 felt their hearts go cold, and they immediately curbed their previous laughter. Then, they paid full attention to Elder Xian. The 7 from the inner courtyard seemed to know what Elder Xian was about to say, but they had solemn looks on their faces. Moreover, they radiated a unique sort of arrogance. Elder Xian said, "Our Shrek Academy has existed for over 10,000 years. Normally, a powerful soul master can live for 200 years at the very least, while some can live even longer. Moreover, more and more students enter the inner courtyard every year. However, the total number of inner courtyard disciples who currently remain within the academy doesn't even reach 100. Do you know why this is the case?" Shu Sancha said, "It's because our seniors have graduated, right?" Elder Xian shook his head, "You're half right. There are a few disciples of the inner courtyard who leave the academy after graduating, but I now want to talk about the disciples who don't graduate." At this point, Elder Xian's voice clearly contained a few more traces of sorrow. They were all good kids. Though they weren't able to truly graduate, their names still exist within the school register. They took the ideals of the academy as their own ideals. It's not that they didn't have the strength to graduate, but because they died for the sake of the academy's ideals. In reality, there are many other students who have the qualifications to enter the inner courtyard. However, many of them choose to leave the academy after graduating from the outer courtyard. It's because entering the inner courtyard of Shrek Academy doesn't just signify that you'll get better things and better teaching. The weight of the responsibilities you'll receive will be similarly large. Those students who choose not to enter the inner courtyard admit that they aren't able to shoulder this task. After agreeing to keep this a secret, they leave. The academy respects the choices of all of its students, but I want to say that every single student who has entered the inner courtyard to pursue their studies is a hero. Not a hero of the academy, but a hero of the entire Doluo continent. The word hero was still very unfamiliar to the young Hui Yuhao and the rest. However, this word carried an indescribable weight to it when it came from Elder Xian's mouth.